You know, summer's just around the corner, which means warmer temperatures, trips to the pool and golf course, Father's Day on June 21st, and grilling out in the backyard. Dad doesn't want another tie or watch. He wants the tender, juicy taste of his favorite steak grilled to perfection. So this Father's Day, give your grill master something the whole family will enjoy. The finest proteins from Omaha Steaks. Every steak and entree is flash frozen and vacuum sealed at the moment of carving. So no matter when your dad enjoys his meal, it will taste as fresh as the day it was carved. When you order from Omaha Steaks, your satisfaction is always guaranteed. So you can order with complete confidence. A gift from Omaha Steaks is something the whole family can indulge in to celebrate the holiday. This Father's Day, give the dads in your life something to savor. World-famous Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and get an extra $35 off with promo code YUM at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code YUM at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details.
You told a lot of lies about achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape. Trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disastrous plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fox. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Dunn, and with me today we have Annie, who I've known for a long time. Annie, do you want to give your spiel, your bio?
Hi, I'm Annie Segarra. I make content online under the name Annie Elaney, and I think at my core, I'm a storyteller, but I do a lot of advocacy for intersectional causes, disability, LGBT rights. I'm a multiply marginalized person, so I care deeply about many marginalized communities that I'm a part of and that I'm not a part of, and hope to bring light to topics that people often don't know a lot about.
Yeah, we used to know each other from YouTube, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to talk intersectionality? It was like queer YouTube. You were one of the most important voices for me in the disability sphere. So thank you for that.
That's so awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, I love to hear that, because sometimes behind the screen it feels like you don't have as much of an impact as other people are able to experience and let you know.
Someone told me recently that they have something called a good job folder, which is where they screenshot all the positive comments and put them in a folder so they can look at them.
That's a very good idea.
Right?
It's maybe because astrologically I'm a Virgo moon. I screenshot comments from people that bother me.
Yes, I have a toxic friendship where, I mean, it's not toxic, where he is a content creator too, and we share like the dumbest comments we get back and forth and then just rage. I think it's helpful because then I hop onto his Reddit posts and like fight, like go to bat for him. And he's like, I see you commenting everywhere. And I'm like, I'm ready to fucking throw down for anyone but myself.
Yeah. For me, I think I collect it as sort of evidence, because I think people have a very oblivious ableism to them. People who like don't believe that anybody could ever be mean to a disabled person. They're both kind of the same. I ran into a neighbor one day and I used my wheelchair to walk my dog, and she, I don't know, for whatever reason had it in for me. And I told her, yeah, I talk about accessibility quite often and, you know, the needs of and the rights of disabled people. And her response to me was, oh, so you think the world should just cater to you? And I'm like, yeah. Well, the staircases cater to you, so you don't have to rock climb to the office every day. But okay.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I do agree that there is like things that didn't happen, or like, oh, nobody would say that to you or whatever. And
exactly.
my thing is I often will comment, is it possible for other people to have experiences you haven't had? Just sort of wondering if that's on your radar at all.
No original experiences. I truly was under the misguided belief that
No. I mean, like, to people who say that didn't happen,
yeah,
to like homophobia or transphobia or ableism, where I'm like, they're like, that didn't happen. I'm like, oh, is it possible that it has happened to someone else and not you? Mm-hmm. Just wondering, like, like, you know, like Tom Cruise is in movies. Is it possible that he's been in movies and you haven't? There are plenty of people that have done things you haven't do or have experienced things you haven't experienced. Like, what are we playing at here?
I'm not sure if that's denial, if that's post well, not post COVID, but post the start of COVID, cognitive decline also as well. Like
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of like that never happened. And I'm like, are you trolling me? And why is this triggering my like being gaslit trauma?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we started talking about this a little bit, and then I said I have to stop talking about ICE because that's all this show has become about. Although the episode 2 episodes ago was about debt, okay, you guys? But and I've received no complaints about this, but I just am getting out ahead of it. So we were talking a little bit about, and then what you were saying was so interesting about the experience of disabled people under these sweeps and, you know, people's experiences in detention centers. Can you say a little bit more about what you were starting to say about it?
Sure. There's a lot to say about it, but I was mentioning trying to log and keep track of folks with disabilities that have been arrested and detained in detention centers. I've come across cases of at least maybe a dozen children with disabilities that have been stuck in detention centers. One who kind of really made the rounds in media was Emmanuel Gonzalez Garcia is the full name. And he is a 15-year-old with autism from Nicaragua. He went missing for maybe 6 days before his mother found out that he was found by firefighters, but then turned into ICE. Yeah. And
Not the firefighters. I'm betrayed.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And poor thing remained in custody for 48 days away from his family. Yeah. And these are kids with like not a lot of verbal ability. There was also a 9-year-old named Kenek, who is the 9-year-old son of Vilma Torres, who has level 3 autism and relies on specialized schooling and daily therapy to regulate his emotions. And he was held at the Dili Detention Center, denied all accommodations, of course, and the services that he needs for more than 80 days he was in there.
Without his parents?
Right.
What?
Like,
I mean, I know these stories, but I'm being the audience, and that should be your appropriate response.
Yeah. There's of course the unjust cases of disabled folks that have been arrested or killed. There's one, I couldn't pronounce his name. I've only read it. Nurul Amin Shah Alam, who was a disabled refugee, and he was found dead after he was detained because he was abandoned by Border Patrol agents about like 5 miles from his home in Buffalo, New York. He was visually impaired and unable to speak English and was left alone on a cold winter night to fend for himself, with no known attempt to leave him in a safe, secure location. There's just several cases of like our most vulnerable people at the intersection of being people of color, immigrants, and people with disabilities that have been arrested, have either been at minimum traumatized and at maximum have been killed through these, I don't even know what to call it anymore, you know, systems. And also even US citizens. I'm sure you've like talked about this as well, like Aliyah Rahman. Do you know this person who was violently arrested on her way to a doctor's appointment? And
She's pulled out of her car.
Yeah, she pleaded with them that she was autistic and had brain injury, and they still, they like hog-tied her, and that led to even more physical injury to her. So if not already disabled, then further disabling them via these arrests, via these detention centers. And if not due to like physical violence, then the detention centers themselves being unsafe, diseases spreading within the centers themselves, the unhygienic ways that they're keeping folks in there, the inadequate kind of food that they're being provided. Yeah, I'm sure, as you've said, you've probably like touched on a lot of.
Not in the disabled community specifically. I mean, it's an intersectional concentration camp. It's I can't imagine. I mean, I'm autistic, but whatever level is the lowest level. I don't know about the levels, but they keep the lights on in the center all the time, which I can't imagine how that would affect me. I mean, keeping the kids in there without their parents and not even alerting the parents to where they are. I don't understand sometimes with people who are not affected by this, because I've worked in customer service. And I've seen them absolutely melt down that their dog was kept in a crate after grooming. And then they have no empathy for a child with autism kept for 48 days in a cage away from the parents.
Right. They don't. And that's kind of the comments also that I was talking about earlier, just the kind of things that people say. I think I've seen press talk about these stories online and the comment section being filled with like American flags and like serves them right and take out the trash and da da da. And I'm like, even for these cases of like disabled children, I'm like, I hope, and I don't bother to check because it's just too many, that they are bots.
Yeah.
Definitely willing to believe that plenty of people do actually think that way. And as I was mentioning, even my example of like Aaliyah, who is a US citizen as well, like it didn't matter. And in these cases, it's always harder to say whether racial profiling is necessarily the reason why, because we can't read people's minds, but there's a great likelihood that that is the case. And I was also thinking about even like disability adjacent Neri Borges, who was a Venezuelan asylum seeker. And because he had an autism ribbon tattoo, he was sent to CCOT under the impression that he was part of the Venezuelan gang. And cases like that, I've had trouble like following up on the current status. And there was another one, a video I saw of a man who had clear cognitive difficulties, unable to verbally communicate. He was arrested violently in Little Village, Chicago on the street. Anybody who responded to this was, for the most part, in a state of panic, like, what is his name? How do we tell his family? But I've looked that case up as well, and there has been like no follow-up. So these people kind of scarily, I'm sure there's a way to find them, but it very much feels like disabled people can certainly have an easier time disappearing in this process than others, particularly because whether it's a language barrier or that they are just unable to communicate themselves orally, verbally to other people.
Yeah, I was at a protest and ICE and DHS came out and they were arresting someone, tackling them violently, which they love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people screaming, he's deaf, he's deaf, because they were worried that something would happen to him. And they still carted him off. And I don't know if they cared particularly, but I just remember people desperately trying to be like, he can't hear you. He can't hear you. And there was not really there was no reaction to that.
Yeah.
They will come out of the detention center and chase you. They come out of the detention center when we're standing there and it's not like they're in danger. They will run and chase you. And so people have to run away, but they kind of go after people who they don't think can run that fast. And that's either someone, there's a person who goes all the time who limps, who sometimes is in a boot, and that person's been arrested endless times. And I mean, obviously you can't read people's minds, but it is easier to say they're not complying because they can't hear, because they can't move away. I mean, I'm sure just even with regular police brutality. I also have this thing that I've been repeating a lot where I'm trying to build community and convince people that just because someone walks, quote unquote, weird, or moves, quote unquote, weird, or makes a weird noise, that doesn't mean scary. They have a scar on their face. It doesn't mean scary. You have to get over that. You cannot just move away or deem someone dangerous. And I'm a horror fan, and horror has done a real number on this shit.
Yeah.
And it's like so boring to me when I see a movie that's like, oh, the whole thing is that the guy walks a little weird. I can't. It creates such a divide between people, even in leftist spaces, even in the most progressive spaces, where there's an unease if someone makes a noise or moves a little weird or whatever. Like, you just have to get the fuck over it.
Yeah, I need a huge collective awakening on our perceptions of disabled people. I think that I'm one of those people that have this dual lens of, I went through the majority of my life not knowing I was disabled, and so had the privilege of like moving around as an able person, passing for abled, and gaining that privilege. And then today I'm out as autistic, neurodivergent. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I use a wheelchair part-time. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, so I need my wheelchair for longer distances and on days where I get injured, which happens a lot with Ehlers-Danlos. And so in a like gender transition way, you can kind of tell what I'm saying of like I know that the privilege exists because of the experiences that I have personally had in my own body. I don't know if I feel almost guilty for that. You know what I mean? Like this kind of maybe survivor's guilt a little bit of like I should have been louder about this before, or I should have known better before having to experience certain things myself. But I have seen things I think from like both sides of the coin, and stuff like I think what that's called, right, especially in horror, which I love horror too, disfiguremia, I think is the word.
I've never heard that.
It's one of those things like identity first versus person first thing, person with a disability versus disabled person. There are some people who like identify with the word disfigured and people who don't, and people who will more so identify with like a facial difference and things like that, or a limb difference. So there's different ways that people identify, but that is the word that I've heard, disfiguremia, to describe this like phobia of people with differences, facial differences, and physical differences. And you'll lose half a star on Letterboxd from me for using that shit to scare people in your movies. I'm like, if that is all you're doing is showing me a disfigured person and I'm supposed to be scared, I'm like, thumbs down. You lost me a little. There are better ways to scare me than that.
But it shows up in community, even in leftist spaces, even in mutual aid spaces. I've seen more work on that and more pushing through that than I've seen in other places. But they're definitely not teaching federal agents or police against that. So somebody doing something a little weird, and I'm using weird as like what they would say.
Yeah, air quotes.
Yeah, is such a threat, is viewed as so potentially dangerous. Somebody moving a little weird, it's like they might have a knife. And I'm like, okay, you have a gun. What are we playing at?
Long way to say I have deeply inset ableist beliefs about how people should behave, and if you behave like a disabled person, you make me scared and I feel threatened. Like that is a very long-winded way of saying all that.
Yeah, yes. So I can see put in a stressful situation, like, I don't know, being thrown into prison without your parents may result in some increased behavior. I don't know. We're not going to solve it here today, but
right.
I'm just griping.
No, this is something that has definitely scared me too, as a person of color and someone who like also I hate this phrase, but like ethnically ambiguous. Like throughout my life, I've experienced several kinds of racism because people assume that I'm a different race. I've had people assume that I'm Muslim and throw some hate at me for that direction. Assume that I'm Black and throw some anti-Black racism at me. I've had people assume that I'm Indian, or finally they'll assume that I'm Latino and throw that kind of variety of racism my way. Definitely at the awareness that everyday police and now ICE are perfectly okay with racially profiling people and even arresting US citizens just because that's the number of bodies is how much they get paid, has been very scary to me as a disabled person, where I've had to kind of like, before I leave the house, take some extra time to think about like how I'm wearing my hair, like should I not wear a braid to this space, about my mobility aids, like the fear of like, if anything goes wrong today, if I run into a cop today, if I run into ICE today, and the worst case scenario like occurs, or one of the worst case scenarios occurs, and I were to be arrested, they may not let me keep my mobility aid, my cane or my wheelchair, and how would I navigate any of that? I also still am very cautious about like COVID and airborne diseases, so I wear my respirator indoors, public spaces, and my autism / OCD on top of that would be suffering so much in a state like that. That's felt, for whatever reason, maybe I'm not talking to enough community members about this, or maybe most of us are trying to just run the hamster wheel of capitalism and avoid the deeply emotionally disturbing contents of the real lives that we're living. And every day I kind of try to have that moment to myself every time I leave the house, and then just do it and try to like forget about it. Because sitting in that for a long time is very hard, very depressing. Even just going through the names of these disabled children and disabled adults who have been arrested and detained by ICE, I'm like, it puts such a pit in my chest of like, is that moral injury? I don't know how it feels almost unsolvable at the moment, not in the present moment. But you were saying, and I did want to like catch that about like how like you find that in leftist organized spaces, there is a better effort to address ableism than in other spaces. And I think I like partially agree with that, but I also know that organizations, groups, they come with a lot of different kinds of backgrounds and different kinds of people, and that's where the standard infighting will happen about things. And I often do see a lot of neglect for accessibility in spaces, because I think even when you are in an organization, even when you are doing a group volunteer effort, that people are still very individually focused on, and as I said, like it's not really anyone's fault. Everyone is trying to survive this like capitalist hamster wheel, and very much neglect how to make any event, any meeting accessible to people. I have like two thoughts in mind, which is one was a de-escalation course for a protest. And they were having people like come up to the front and practice, rehearse like a de-escalation, and then also had to do something about like walking through the property. And me, right, physically disabled and autistic, I'm like, I came here to learn. I can't really walk around this property. I think that I made an attempt because I only had my cane. My anticipation was that this was a class and I would be sitting down. So I only came with my cane. And then I did try to get up. I was like, let me just give it a shot. Let me try. And came up to the front of the class to do the rehearsal task that they wanted to do. But then I got my symptoms. I got tachycardia, high heart rate, and dizziness and all this stuff. And I sat down and I just felt so embarrassed for like getting sick in front of everybody. I didn't really know my neighbors because we were, separated into groups of people we didn't know. And so I just typed a little note on my phone and showed it to the person next to me and said, I'm feeling really like ill after that exercise, so I'm going to just excuse myself. So I didn't just like get up and leave people guessing. But I went to the car and I had my little probably autistic feelings about like, was that my fault or their fault at this point? Like because I kind of wish that it felt more inclusive. And if you can't come up here and if you can't walk around, here's the other option for what you can do next. Like I wish that it had been a bit more thoughtful in regards to like what people's capacities and limitations are, instead of assuming that everybody in your space is able-bodied and had no problems doing that. And then recently, I've also witnessed somebody try to say that in-person meetings tend to be easier than online meetings for them. And it is often because of like an audio processing issue. They process better if they're in person versus online on the computer. And the attitude is kind of like, well, if it's not accessible to you, just don't participate. Like that's kind of like it. Instead of like somebody going like, maybe we can make the auto captions work for you. Maybe we can transcribe the meeting for you. But it's that individualist hamster wheel I'm talking about. Like people are so in their own heads that they're not thinking about how to be in community with each other and how to make sure that what we're doing includes everybody. That's something that happens like, fluidly on and off through history.
I can't do everything around here. Deadlines are slipping. I can't just do it all on my own. I need to hire someone. I needed an editor. And I was scrounging. How am I going to find an editor? It was a chaotic mess over here. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. I have personally used Indeed for years. I actually have been hired for 2 jobs off of Indeed. I was able to match my skills with jobs in my area. The only 2 times that I have been hired without any sort of in with the company was through Indeed. So I was pretty stoked to find the people I needed for this podcast, and also to know that I could do that on a place where I have been hired. And if you're looking to hire someone, let's say you're the job looking to hire me, you can use Indeed sponsored jobs as a boost whenever you need to find quality talent. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. That's cuckoo bananas. And so, speaking as someone who has been on both sides of the hiring spectrum, Indeed has helped me in real life spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
One of the things, have you talked about Section 504? What's going on with that?
No, tell me.
Section 504, well, if we don't know what that is, it's the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and it was one of the foundational disability civil rights protections that came up in the United States. So it prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs receiving federal funding. I don't want to make errors, so I'll say that I do need to refresh my knowledge about this, but the Department of Health and Human Services, I believe in 2024, they finalized a new rule that expanded and clarified disability protections, including accessibility requirements and medical non-discrimination protections and community integration requirements. But then subsequent lawsuits from multiple states challenge parts of that rule, particularly the provisions related to gender dysphoria. So now they're using anti-transness to come after disability rights. Yeah. more intersections. So the disability community, of course, is a little bit quivering in their boots because this is a really important law for us. It predates ADA. And the reason I originally wanted to bring this up, this is a current thing that's happening. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is to talk about how it was won originally in 1977. Disabled activists organized the 504 sit-ins where they occupied the Capitol, right? Something that happened there was the Black Panther Party was able to assist them. They provided them with hot meals and logistical support. I believe I remember seeing this moment in a documentary about how wondering why the Black Panthers were helping the disabled community. And their reaction was you guys are fighting for what's right and you're fighting for all of us. And so we're going to be here for you. Not direct quote, obviously. That's not the top of my head.
Yeah.
That was one of the, the anecdotes in my head of intercommunal solidarity, right? Where even if you are not disabled yourself, you have the understanding that disabled people, when disabled people are in the ring, they are fighting for everybody. Because even if you're not disabled now, you can always become disabled tomorrow. Keep raw dogging that air. and all of us can become disabled tomorrow, whether it is by airborne illness that triggers cancer or et cetera, or if you get into a car accident tomorrow, knock on wood, any one of us, or let's say nothing of the sort happens and we just manage to grow old. Age often comes with disabilities as well, whether physical disabilities, cognitive ones. It's not disabled people are just their own little weirdo group. And if they want to fight for themselves, they should. It should be literally everyone's fight. Different communities should be constantly looking at disabled activists and seeing what they're up to, what they're fighting, and being willing to involve themselves in that fight as well, and to provide whatever kind of assistance they can. But instead, we find ourselves still in this like kind of hyper individualistic a time. And especially you're talking about money on this pod as well, like with the economic times being what they are, it's become even more so. People are not thinking about how to like include everyone or make sure that their spaces are accessible or safe. It doesn't matter. People are just kind of like winging it and doing their own thing. Oh my gosh. While I experience that emotionally, I also feel discouraged and I try not to. My partner is very optimistic about these things and while I'm like this stuff just keeps breaking my heart and like makes me not want to participate. It's enough to like steer me away from activism and organizations because I'm like I don't feel welcome here. That's my own trauma. That's my own trauma. Like when I don't feel like I'm wanted in a space, then I'm like, okay, I can just go home. I'm not going to be somewhere where I'm not wanted and I'm not welcome and I'm not included. But the other side of that, because I don't think that my emotional experience is the right answer. I can tell when I'm wrong sometimes. And my partner has way more optimism and is like, well, sometimes it takes communication because people just don't know. And then once they know, they can do better. And like, but I'm still processing and dealing with my feelings. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do that and then come back in and then try to like talk to people after that.
It's also so lovely to say, oh, once they know, they'll fix it. It's like that's lovely.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, so cute. Well, it's interesting because we were talking about like leftist infighting, and a lot of what I go to doesn't require masks. I don't wear masks in places I probably should. I see a lot of discussion of that. What do you make of that, or what are you seeing in how that is coming across?
Personally, I do think that wearing respirators, wearing masks is far left, is high revolutionary, not just because it is protecting each other and keeping our personal selves safe for the fight that we are in, but also keeping immunocompromised and disabled people in mind as well. Like if you think that I am not disabled, I'm perfectly healthy, whatever comes at me in the air, it comes at me and I'll be fine. One, that may not be true. There's plenty of things that can happen, whether neurologically, vascularly, you could become physically disabled, cognitively disabled, early dementia, cancer. There's a lot of potential consequences for airborne illnesses, and in large part COVID with the lack of it's new. So we have a lot still to like learn about it. But what we have learned so far is that it freaking burns up our internal system, our vascular system, and it causes a lot of problems that way. But even if our own self-preservation health-wise wasn't a concern, it would show solidarity to the disabled community. I'm wearing this mask not even because I'm too worried about myself, but I want to protect other people. The rules of the game have not changed since like before Biden said, okay, everybody go back to work. And not just everybody go back to work, but he also told government leaders, and whatever COVID relief funds you have left, give it to the police. So
I hate everyone. I hate everyone.
it's all that. Plus, the other thing that also makes it left, in my opinion, is the government told us take your masks off right when they're up in AI surveillance all over the place as well. So your face is not your own. Your face is everywhere. You know, you're walking down the street, Palantir, Amazon, everybody has your face. I've been a lot more stingy about my face when I'm out in public now. Like including walking my dog. I'm like, oh my God, all these Amazon cameras are all over the place. And I just don't want my face on their cameras. And I'm in Florida, it's hot. So I will say that I mask as much as I personally can. I'm also a disabled person with POTS and like very low heat tolerance. Just a hot temperature can make me like very dizzy and faint. So while I do have a priority on like protecting myself with wearing my respirator, I can't always wear it outside. So that is to preface just that, like, when I'm walking my dog, I'll wear like a large hat and like, cover my face.
Yeah.
Sunglasses and a big sun hat and be like, nobody's getting my face on their little Amazon cameras. Not for free. Not for free. So,
That's so funny.
there's a sense of self-preservation for your own privacy, for your own health, but also just being a good neighbor, a good community member, and trying to increase your own personal longevity of the fight. You don't want to miss next week's meeting because you're sick. I've definitely heard from people that they mask just because I don't get sick days from work. I cannot get sick. So I wear my mask everywhere. There's just a lot of reasons. As I said, COVID remains like dangerous for many immunocompromised and medically vulnerable people, not to mention being immunocompromised and vulnerable in itself. Sometimes when you try to get help in the hospital, they will deprioritize you because you are disabled. That was a big thing to me. I knew that when the pandemic began in 2020, that as a disabled person that's like chronically bedbound, that if anything happened to me, that they were even telling you straight up to your face in the news. They're like, yeah, if somebody's already sick or disabled, terminal, we're not going to put our resources into helping them with COVID because there's not enough resources and they're at the bottom of the list. So there's a lot when it comes to solidarity in here, knowing things like that, about caring about how infection and disease spread impacts your disabled community members. And not just that, but we'll bring it back to ICE again, like an ICE detention centers where nobody can be protected. Bring it over to Gaza where like people are also suffering with airborne diseases and there's not a lot of help for them. Like if this is something that you can do, it's something I certainly invite people to consider doing a bit more, doing a bit of a practice. And I'm also saying it as someone who is not perfect about it either, because I know people who they mask the entire time that they're outside of the house. And I always say, if you can, and that's what you feel is right to do, you go for that. With my disabilities, it's hard to mask all the time. And I limit my time in public spaces indoors because of those same reasons as well, because I have yet to find like a mask that like fits my face right without hurting my little Ehlers-Danlos ears. Do you know what I'm saying?
Ears. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. Allison calls it tenderhead, but it's just like where, but she has a cool one, which has like a beaded, I should have to ask her what it is, but she's got like a beaded thing instead of whatever the plastic is or the nylon, whatever it is. I don't know if that makes a difference for her, but it also is fashionable.
Yeah. If I'm out in the world and I see somebody wearing a respirator, I'm like, hello, comrade. I know who you are.
Bedazzled. You bedazzle the respirator.
Absolutely. I'm like, oh, these are cool peeps. They've read the medical papers and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to sit on my butt and not do nothing about that.
I'm always like, oh, so somebody who is disabled, they have a cane and it's a whatever. But somebody who's just like a cool fashion person with a cane, that's allowed. Oh, okay. If the cane has like a snake head on top, we're all cool with it.
Yes. I think that making them more aesthetic would be helpful too. I just think it's so funny, definitely in left spaces, that they know the government fucking lies about so much. Yeah. Well, the government said the pandemic's over. Like, when did you fucking start believing in the government?
It's also this double conspiracy, not conspiracy because it's all ended up true, but this thing of, oh, they told us to unmask because they want to get our faces. And then, then like when it started, it was like, oh, they're telling us to mask to keep us under control and to test what we'll do. You know what I mean? Like the conspiracy horseshoe where it's just like, sometimes someone will say, this is my own problem, is someone will say the conspiracy is this. And I'll be like, ooh, good point. And then they'll be like, no, it's the opposite. And I'll be like, also a good point.
That's pretty great. No, I wish there was actually any real effort to get people to mask in this country. The government like really left us on our own for so much of it. Like they're like, make
And
your
with everything, and they'll continue to do it with climate change, with lack of, railroads, whatever. Like, they'll just be like, yeah, I don't know, figure it out.
Do you remember the kind of masks that people resorted to at the beginning of the pandemic? They took freaking socks and like tied it to their face. They took people try to come up with whatever little bandanas because other governments during pandemics provide resources and help to their civilians. They provide daily masks, daily testing. They provide all these things. That money from the COVID relief funds should have gone to like installing UV disinfectant lights and air purifiers to schools and hospitals and making our air cleaner, as clean as we can make it. So that way, if somebody is sick, like the air can be purified or disinfected and there's less likeliness of a spread. But instead, they gave that money to the cops. And now we don't have any improved buildings.
None of this is conspiracy anymore. Everything is true. I'm like, so your uncle who lived in a shed in 1992 and like wore a metal hat was as like a spaghetti cylinder as a hat was right about everything. So we owe him an apology. But there's like, I'm laughing about that, not about this next thing. To leave that to us was a very big genocide on older people, on disabled people. So it was like, wow, how convenient that this pandemic, not to say the pandemic was created or anything, but how convenient to leave it so that it clears out this group of people.
You're 2 steps away from like where it is all the time, which is the capitalization of health insurance and medical care. That is an everyday, very discreet, very subtle, very quiet genocide in this country. And it has been for decades and decades and decades, as long as we've been doing this, that if you don't have enough money for care, then you can just die. If you have a tooth infection, if you have cancer, it doesn't matter what the situation is. But if you need medical care, but you don't have the money to pay for it, we don't care. You can just go home and suffer and die. And that's been happening for the longest time. And I think the pandemic certainly just ramped it up and made it a bit more clear to people. And at the end of the day, pandemics are a tool of the colonizer. And that, again, why I say like protecting each other from disease and from getting sick and from becoming further or disabled at all, like we have to reject the ways in which they are using us. They're using us to further their own agenda. They're using us to continue to spread illness without a care and weaken our movement, weaken our organizations, and weaken our collective.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be, along with climate change, which is sort of connected or is connected, I think that's going to be the new or possibly old, whatever, more obvious to people who are not in the disability community that is the killer. The underground bunkers they're building, you sort of have to, those are going to have air purifiers. Or the increased disease that will come out of food being treated the way it is, and then water being treated the way it is, and then RFK being in charge of Health and Human Services, so measles and smallpox and all of that coming back. It is just like a slow, boring genocide.
Yeah. Oh, geez. And you said it there too, like people who are very wealthy, they have access to all the resources they need. I have a relative who works for like a millionaire, a very rich person, and she practices disease prevention, illness prevention in her house all the time. She has people like disinfect their shoes before they come in. She has people wear masks inside her house, like, and she has air purifiers. She's making sure she's like, none of my rich relatives are getting sick in this house. In comparison, the rest of this country that lives in like poverty or a faux current middle class, etc., like are just being told to believe you'll be fine. Just get back to work. Just get back to work. That's the thing that really matters. And seeing that beautiful face and that beautiful smile, like, we have to see your face. I'm like, ooh, yeah, you're right. It does sound a little bit like conspiratorial, but I also
nothing is anymore.
Listen, But I also just get freaking PDA from it. Do you know what I mean by PDA? Pervasive defensive autonomy, or
It's a type of autism.
previously, yeah, it's a subtype. Pathological demand avoidance is what it used to be called, but pervasive defensive autonomy is like the new branding on that one. And like for the government to say, yeah, it's over, take your masks off, when like there's so much information about this that exists, including the fact that like transgender and non-binary people experience higher rates and longer durations of long COVID compared to like cisgender people as well. Like there's like so many studies that show like post illness symptoms that linger, like fatigue and brain fog and body aches.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I think in my circles, it is mostly an intersection of like queer and disabled folks, and people who have experienced COVID. They often experience a long COVID afterward. And so when I say queer, I'm doing it as an umbrella term, like queer and trans folks.
Do you think that's because, is that science, or do you think that's because that's who's willing to say that that's what happened? Whereas other people might say, oh yeah, I don't know, like my brain doesn't work the same, but what are you going to do? Like they won't admit that it was COVID.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I'm sure a lot of people, especially when they're not testing for it as well, are like, yeah, I just feel funny lately. I feel funny and I'm having trouble remembering stuff. And like, so they're not going to like relate it back to what may have been the actual cause.
Girl, I had a producer on this podcast that I ended up letting go, but she was convinced she had all of these symptoms and she was convinced that it was from the vaccine. And I was like, baby, what do you, like, maybe, but probably it's from this other thing that we sort of have science to say. Like, it was hard for me to say to her, do you think that maybe this is long COVID and it is not the vaccine that caused this? And the idea, like, well, after I got the vaccine, it hurt in the localized region. Yeah, that's a shot. That's what happens with a shot. And then she was trying to get accommodations at work, but she wouldn't admit what it was from. So she was like, they're not letting me get accommodations because I was injured by the vaccine. And I was like, but if you were honest about what it was or looked into what it was beyond what you're assuming it was, perhaps you could get these accommodations. You're so close to understanding what's happening. It was so hard because she was legitimately in pain and she wasn't going to get the help that she needed because she wasn't going to read or look into what it might actually be or be open-minded to what it might actually be.
Yeah, I can definitely see that it's certainly possible that maybe trans and non-binary people like have been able to like identify it more, but there's also, you know, a possibility of like just genetic difference and genetic susceptibility as well.
Interesting.
Especially with how in the queer community there's a lot of overlapping like connective tissue disorders. There's a lot of hypermobile queer and trans people that like end up suffering like different kinds of disabling things. And there's like there's a big theory, and they're trying to look into it at the moment. I believe it's finding a gene that is like a triple threat. That this gene, one singular gene, would be connective tissue defects, queerness/transness, and autism. In like one...
the autism thing. Yeah. That I believe, because my first clue of transness was realizing that everybody cared about gender so much. Like, it wasn't like, oh, for me, it wasn't like I'm so distressed about being a woman. It was that I was like, well, everybody thinks of this as just a costume. Like, this is the costume I have to wear to go through life. It's not like I'm not like obsessed with it. You know, like we're all at a costume party and this is my costume. Oh. And other people were like, that's not a thing. And I remember asking my ex-fiance's sister. I was like talking to her and I was like, this is again so autistic. I was like, and you like being a woman. Like that's a thing that you like think about and you like it. And she was like, yeah. And I was like that's like, you're like, that's cool to you. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, and you don't ever really think about it as like a thing that's kind of just like happening to you. And she's like, no. And I was like, ruh-roh. Ruh-roh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, this is the costume you wear to get through life on easy mode. And
easy mode.
Well, that's what I thought, because it was like nobody's gonna that's what I knew, and nobody was going to give me problems about it. Now, passing mostly as male, I am sorry to say, is so much easier.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh my God. Being visibly trans, very hard. That middle part, really hard. Being passing as male, wildly better. Oh my God. Safety, no periods. People hear you the first time. It's crazy. Yeah, I think there is an overlap with autism and trans, specifically because I think we view gender as like just kind of like part of it and not like a whole thing that we're super attached to, because nothing makes sense. All of society makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why would this one thing make sense? I think it's why I'm bisexual too, because I'm like, what? You guys are like obsessed with genitals? That's so crazy. That's so weird.
Yeah, there's the definitely that like over analytical and enemies with uncertainty part of autism, because uncertainty causes like so much distress. And so there's definitely that period of just like a lot of questions asking. I remember someone before I was out as gender fluid, non-binary, that I was asking a lot of trans friends a lot of questions. And I think they took it the wrong way too. They're like, what was my question? It's like, okay, but how do you know? It was like my question. And I think that they took it like are you trying to imply that I don't know? Which I'm like, no, for me. How do you know? And I was just very curious about like how people made sense of gender and how people made those kinds of decisions, like made the decision to come out as trans or non-binary. And then it took lots of years of like exploring myself, and eventually came down to like, yeah, gender fluidity makes me happy. A gender fluid expression makes me really happy. I like when I have short hair and thick glasses and a big coat and somebody says, "Excuse me, Sarah," and I'm like, thank you. and just like being able to go back and forth. I think my like gender fluid fantasy is like being like an anamorph and being able to like change myself every day.
Yeah.
Like some days I want to be Beyonce and some days I want to be Ryan Gosling. No, that's inaccurate. Some days, not Ryan Gosling. I want to have the aesthetic of 90s Leo DiCaprio in like...
Oh, my favorite lesbian.
Yes. Romeo plus Juliet aesthetic of like, oh, and I did that costume for Halloween too with my partner. We did the knight and the angel for Halloween. That was so fun.
Love. Yeah, my Halloween was a big one. I know a lot of drag queens and trans people talk about this, where I was like always this male character for Halloween.
Oh.
And then I was Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused. And by the way, speaking of the fucking early internet, I was that. And then I almost got canceled because he's like a predator in the film.
Oh, no.
And I was like, people dress as ghosts. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, he's a fictional character. But then I was Alaska Thunderfuck when she was Lil Pound Cake, which is like a drag queen being another character.
Yeah.
I was Robin Hood one year. I really wanted to be Robin Hood. Dressed as Robin Hood was the first time I got called sir.
Oh.
And I was like, I was Will Ferrell in Anchorman. Really committed to this bit. But yeah.
My eyes are a little glossy for you. Like, that's so sweet. Yeah, that's so sweet that like, oh, that you were that, yeah, like it's very cliche, but but that you're using Halloween as like your gender exploration. That's so sweet. You can wear a little necklace with an engraving that says, "My costume is just for fun aesthetic purposes and not a public endorsement of the person I'm replicating."
Like, truly. Anyway, whatever. You want to end on leftist infighting. Do you want to tell my audience where they can find you and more of your work?
Yes. I am currently a lot on Instagram with the handle Annie Elaney, and I use the same name on YouTube and a bunch of other socials as well.
And what was your favorite Halloween costume? The one with you guys as Claire Danes and Leo?
Yeah, I love that. I love getting to do that. I have like a little photo album of costumes that we've done together. We also did San Junipero as costumes.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah, and what else? Ooh, and the Chapel Roan casual music video where she's in like big blue eyeshadow and white face, and she's with
Yes.
the little like swampy mermaid. And
Yes.
and I was the swampy mermaid.
Yes. I'm also just remembering that me and my ex-boyfriend were Mormon missionaries. We were gay Mormons. We had little name tags that said Elder Fag Romney and then Elder Brigham Hung. It was a real hit at the gay Halloween party. A lot of people were taking pictures with us.
Oh my God.
But I was already trans for that one.
I think that's so delicious. I think that's so
It was real fun. We
amazing.
were like making out dressed as Mormons. Anyway,
Oh my God.
thank you so much for being on the show. And I really appreciate you and your work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. This is a noted bisexual production, edited by Allie Mims. Logo art by Dakota Becker. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the Substack, 1000naturalshocks.substack.com. The Substack has episodes of this show ad-free and also videos and also my original writing. It would mean so much to me if you would subscribe, even as a free subscriber, but a paid subscriber really allows me to keep doing this work, and I can't do it without you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, love you. Bye.